The member for Brantford Brant. Madam Speaker, how did this all start? Well, it started with a Prime Minister who, before he even took office, expressed his admiration for the basic Chinese communist dictatorship. He elsewhere expressed his admiration for Fidel Castro, whom he called a great revolutionary. Seeing this ideological bond, Beijing decided it had a friend and wanted to help the Prime Minister get elected. It interfered in 2 successive elections. The most recent election, intelligence confirms they wanted to see the Prime Minister win and defeat the Conservatives. They did this by intimidating the Chinese diaspora. People who had otherwise been going out to vote patriotically were told and indicated that they had to stay home and avoid voting. And we saw ridings with large Chinese populations had massive reductions in voter turnout. We know that members of Parliament have been threatened by the regime in Beijing, even having the possibility of their families facing harm back home in China. We know that the Prime Minister has been aware of many of these facts for a very long time and yet chose to do nothing. His defense is that he knew nothing. Well, if he knew nothing, he is not getting the basic information from his intelligence forces, then it indicates that he is incompetent and incapable of protecting our homeland, Madam Speaker. And worst of all, the people who are the greatest victims of this are Canadians of Chinese origin, who've come here to build this country, who come here to escape tyranny and embrace freedom, who follow the law and contribute to our country every day and in every way. And yet, their government in this country has done nothing to protect them from the government in the country they left behind. We have the stories told to members of Parliament in our caucus who went on doorsteps during campaigns to meet people who were in tears, people who told them that they had to leave the doorstep and go to a faraway field somewhere with their phones left behind because they were worried they were being tracked by a foreign government, worried that their families could be harmed, worried that acts of intimidation or even violence could happen to them here on Canadian soil. And still, the government has not set up a foreign influence registry that could help us identify the thugs that carry out this intimidation. Still, this government has refused to bring in tougher laws to shut down all foreign-controlled police stations. And still, this Prime Minister has failed to call the public inquiry that is required. We call on the NDP to set a condition that if there is no public inquiry, that the NDP will break the coalition and stand up for Canada and Canadians for once. These Canadians who are attacked by this foreign government, these Canadians of Chinese origin, they are patriotic Canadians. They deserve the protection of their government. These are our people. This is our land. This is our country. This is our home. Thank you.
Questions and comments. Questions et commentaires. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary, the Government House Leader.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. The Leader of the Opposition has said on a number of occasions that he doesn't want to receive and learn about the classified information because he doesn't want to be silenced. Yet he has members of his caucus, the member from Bruce Grey Owen Sound, for example, that has those security clearances, has received those briefings through NSICOP, and has participated in multiple debates in this House on foreign interference. Is it true that the Leader of the Opposition is really concerned about being silenced, or is it more so that he would rather be willfully ignorant?
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Madam Speaker, the former. We know that if the Prime Minister had his way, he'd bring me into a room, he'd drop a bunch of paper in front of me, much of which would already be public knowledge, and he'd mark it secret. And then, if I went out in the world and spoke about similar subject matter, then he would say I violated the rules of national security. I know exactly what he's up to, and that is why I will continue to do my job, which is Leader of the Opposition, to hold him accountable. I will not be silenced. This is Canada, and in Canada we have the freedom of expression. Thank you.
Questions and comments. The Honourable Member for New Westminster Burnaby.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. We just had the member from Vancouver East, who's had a confidential security briefing, speaking very passionately, and she's brought forth this motion that we are debating today. And with the Leader of the Official Opposition pretending that somehow having access to that confidential material will muzzle him. How is it that the member from Vancouver East can speak so passionately, can bring forward this motion when she's had a security briefing, and how could the leader of the official opposition ever pretend the contrary?
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Madam Speaker, we know, as I said moments ago, what the Prime Minister's plan is. He wants to mark secret things that would otherwise be publicly debatable, put things that would be in a gray area under the secrecy of the state, and then put them before me to prevent me from speaking publicly about. We know that's exactly his plan. As for the NDP, we want to know their plan. Are they going to continue to protect the Liberals? Are they going to continue to work for the Liberal Party instead of working for their own constituents? They put on a big show in here. We've already passed a motion like this, by the way. The government didn't do anything because the NDP kept them in power. And back in committee, they do exactly the same thing. They speak, they go to hold press conferences and act all tough. Back in committee, all they do is give all the procedural support necessary for the Prime Minister to cover it up again and again and again. They have abandoned their constituents. They don't work for the people of Canada. They work for the Prime Minister. That's why they will be out of office after the next election.